One, two, three. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, again, it
Awesome.
said something about the settings failing, but well, seems to be working.
Yep, seems to be working pretty well. Hello everybody who's going to be watching this. Y'all know me. I'm a lot like Locke. So I'm going to let Joan here introduce himself.
Yeah, well, when I'm 26 year old, and I'm from Finland. I have been following Jordan Peterson for a couple of months before he became famous for the pronoun issue. Um, I've studied humanistic sciences like religious studies, media studies, all that postmodern stuff, so to speak, for about 8 years. And I'm just about to finish my degree, which is, well, all that stuff plus pedagogic studies to become a high school teacher, for now at least. And, well, I don't know. Maybe that's a good enough introduction.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good introduction. So we're going to start off with some questions about yourself. Well, actually, I'm going to take a step back and explain myself to you and others, and then how I came across you. So I'm currently a student myself. I'm majoring in economics with a heavy concentration in mathematics. I came across Jordan B. Peterson by his refusal to use the pronouns. Ever since then, I'd always had a strong place in the social sciences, but with his work and through his work, I've moved towards going into behavioral economics, which is a kind of psychology plus economics. Um, I came across your video by just happen chance. It just ended up on one of my YouTube feeds, and
Uh,
the
may I
the
ask,
first video, yeah,
are we talking about the historical video or the what actually Pearson is doing video?
yeah, the what is Jordan Peterson actually doing video.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so I came across that because I hadn't had time to really figure out what Nietzsche was saying or uh what Carl Jung was saying. I just kind of knew it by second secondhand knowledge from Jordan Peterson, and then when I found that out from you, I was like, it was mind blowing to me to learn about like the the
Hmm.
the consciousness, personal unconscious, and then the culture unconsciousness, and then universal unconsciousness. I thought that was pretty fantastic. And then the
Yeah,
Nietzschean dilemma. Yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
I've been like I've read mostly Nietzsche. I'm not that familiar with Jung. I've just read like some essays, and that's about it. Maybe like 300 pages in total. But I don't know because I think many Jung's ideas, and obviously listening to Peterson, he explains Jung well, as far as I know, very clearly and uh, well. It's been really useful to start thinking about myself in those terms, like who am I and what is my psyche and everyone else's psyche and all that. So yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, I totally agree. So I also know that you're a pretty sizable individual. I've seen some of your weightlifting videos as well. I think
Oh
you had like a 200 kilogram squat. Uh,
yeah, I did 210 on December.
so so as Americans, we don't know what kilograms are. So
Well,
it's 400,
well, it's
463 pounds.
462. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I've been
So
doing it's like
go ahead.
well, it's like I've been training for what 8 years or something like that, and I've occasionally thought about it that which has been more important, weightlifting or Jordan Peterson, like setting my life in order. But I got to say that it really is the barbell. Like Peterson is the
Yeah,
intellectual side of it, but the barbell has really taught me. Well, it's made me way more conscientious than I really am. So that has been a huge help.
yeah, I was getting ready to say that, like, through working out myself, I find that, like, I've always heard this, and I think this is true. Iron sharpens iron. So, like, as a personal statement, when Jordan Peterson tells people they need to clean up their room and stuff like that. Another part that doesn't get touched on a lot is that, as an individual, you should seek out some athletic endeavor in some instance. I
Mm.
personally, I'm a wrestler on top of, weightlifting, but
Oh,
uh, weightlifting is has always been like a love for me because it's just a fantastic way to just get anger out or just better yourself in general to get that, like you say, conscientiousness where you're forced to go to the gym every day, and even if you don't want to, you do, and that builds that confidence that you're completing a task that can lead and spill over to other parts of your life.
one huge thing about it, and I think it ties very nicely to what Peterson says about facing the unknown and being in the right place, in the right balance point is of order and chaos. Is that actually training, like getting that 1 kilo or 1 pound more on the bar every time you go or whatever? That's really like I can't think of a more concrete manifestation of that idea. Like that's actually how you learn. And when I've started thinking about weightlifting, even like it's that it's not a material process. It's me learning new information, learning what I am made of, or pushing myself further into the unknown. It has really like opened up how I also approach then other things in life, how I learn other things and how I view those things.
Oh yeah, I find that to be really insightful. So the next question, in one of your videos, you made a joke about, like, I think it was like Toronto metal. So
Ah,
what kind of music do you listen to?
well, I used to be a really big metalhead. Like I started listening to metal. I was 11, heard The Trooper by Iron Maiden, of course, as cheesy as it sounds, and I was like, well, mind blown. And then I spent the next decade mostly listening to metal, all kinds of going really deep, like scouring the depths of MySpace for all brutal death metal stuff and whatnot. Nowadays, I'm actually getting more into synthwave and that kind of stuff, being doing some of my own music and stuff like that.
Okay, that's really cool. I myself grew up listening to metal. I think the first metal band I heard growing up was Megadeth, and then it was Pantera. So kind of thrash, and then, like, I guess you could say Pantera with like funk groove metal. Um,
Yeah.
I do like a lot of Norwegian metal, or I guess you could say that area of metal, Norway, Scandinavia, the Nordic metal. Big
Mm.
fan of Amon Amarth and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Um, so let me ask you, as someone who's highly influenced by Jordan Peterson, have you ever gone back to, like, the lyrics of songs that you listened to before Jordan Peterson and, like, analyzed them in a manner, like, I guess you could say, through your new eye-opening stage?
Hmm. Well, somewhat. Mostly when I listen to music, it's about the music, not the lyrics. But there are some examples. There's a Finnish band, unfortunately, or well, fortunately, they sing only in Finnish, uh, called CMX, and they are kind of a rock band. But the main songwriter, he is really interested in like esoteric stuff, Gnosticism, and all the religious and symbolic stuff you can think of. And he has met. Well, there are many parallel thoughts with him and Jordan Peterson, and they have this awesome concept album. It's like a space rock metal musical called, well, the translation would be something like The Winter King. And that's a single concept album, and there's a whole story going on. And it has really opened up to me when Peterson has laid out the basic mythological framework of the Great Father, Great Mother, and the divine individual, for example.
Okay, that's really cool. I've had some similar thoughts.
Mm.
So let's get into Christianity with Jordan Peterson. So Jordan Peterson tends to avoid answering the question directly about whether or not he's a Christian or whether or not he believes that Jesus Christ was resurrected. I think he said he's going to take 7 more years for him to answer this.
Yeah, yeah.
Why do you think he's not willing to answer it, or at least give a close answer? Is like, I don't necessarily believe in God, but I act as if God exists. But why doesn't he just say, I don't believe that there's an external force on the universe? Why do you think he avoids that?
Um, I do have a couple of thoughts about that. Uh, First, I think is the obvious one that um, it's the limitations of the genre and the persona he's taken. That if he started, because I think, well, I if we're going to publish this, many people might disagree with me, and I might get into like internet trouble for it. But I think he's experimented with a lot of mystical stuff and stuff like psychedelics, whatever mystical experiences, mystical literature, really delving deep into that. And if he would just blurt out all that, frankly, private stuff about his life, which is also might be, well, it would be really hard for his average listener to digest. I think the kind of listener who might say that I've been atheistic, but now I've become interested in religion, thanks to Jordan Peterson. But if he really showed the depths into which he has gone, I don't think many people would like that or would be
Okay.
comfortable with that.
No, I think I see what you're saying. Now, through that road of mysticism uh, that I agree with your synopsis there too. That I think we should say that he's gone. Do you think later on, as he becomes, I guess you could say, a little bit less famous? I don't know how. I don't really have a
Mm.
time frame. I think 7 years was kind of odd. I think in 7 years he might ride to the end of his fame. Do you
Yeah,
think at
maybe.
that point, do you think at that point, if he wasn't so famous, he would be more direct in answering that question, or at
I don't
least
know.
explaining it in a way?
I don't know because he seems to be pretty conservative, and he might have to he might have the argument that it's his private business, that
Hmm.
ultimately the religious life is actually something you face alone. So I don't know. I'm that would be my guess, but I don't know. Who knows?
No, I think that's a pretty good synopsis. Um, so what specific about Jordan Peterson kind of like attached you to his ideas? Was it the archetypes? Was it his like way of explaining things in a conservative manner and getting people to take on responsibility, or was it some other facet of Jordan Peterson's work?
Um, it definitely it was not the political message at all. And well, I found him when he was pretty apolitical still. Only just a little while before that. But um, well, I had I found him what it was 2016, maybe summer. His videos were in my recommendation, something about Nietzsche, and I had read quite a bit of Nietzsche. I had read Brave New World, 1984. A lot of that stuff he recommends in his reading list. So then when
Hmm.
this guy comes up who says that, hey, here are these books, and they are actually pretty important lessons, and he articulated so uh, well, I guess beautifully what the important messages are in those things. And I was like, yeah, goddamn, I read all that stuff. It's awesome that there's someone more experienced kind of showing that, like feeling the sense of validation that my hunch was right. These were the books to get to, and uh, like he articulated the message from those books um, in such a manner that it like it went deeper than just saying, yeah, well, 1984 totalitarianism is bad. Like he actually goes deeper into the subject. So that's why I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
So it was
Um,
more on the philosophical side.
okay. No, I totally agree. Those are really good books to people. If you haven't read those, you probably should. They're fantastic.
Definitely.
And another book I typically recommend to people from the existentialist is Franz Kafka, The Trial. It's a
I
really awesome book too.
never read any Kafka, but I guess I should.
Yeah, it's a Kafka to me, right, in The Trial, it's about like existential dread and just like how we have a society, but within that society, there's another society that's secret that controls us. And like you could take it to mean like a totalitarian state and stuff like that, or you could take it to mean like how we act and function within society is determined not by like society itself, but by like our very closest allies and how like they have some minor control over our actions, and that we will never be able to get out of it. We're all Pavlovian dogs to our subcultures. And then if that subculture, rebels against the society itself, then you're just kind of stuck where you're just stabbing yourself trying to get out of either one.
Mm,
That's one interpretation of it. There's tons of them, but
mm,
that's what I got from the book.
mm,
So if you had to recommend three books to anyone, what would those books be?
mm. Well, mhm. Well, I really like damn it's in English the translation is Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov. Peterson has mentioned it couple of times. I think it's from like 1930s, a Russian novel, pretty famous. I enjoy that a lot. It, it's in Finnish it's called like Satan arrives into Moscow, and the novel is about a story when Satan and his wacky crew arrives into Moscow and starts causing all kinds of trouble. It's funny and entertaining, and it has also a very um, religious subplot into it in it, and I think that's great. Then I I enjoy a lot Nietzsche's when I for me the genealogy of morals has been maybe I read it several times and uh, wrote some essays about it and stuff like that. I really enjoy it. And then the third is a cop out. I would say any book that really grips you and makes you go back to it. So, something that you feel like it calls to you. Even for me, like then from Nietzsche's Gay Science, the part 125, the parable of the madman. It just I can't get over it. I read it several times a year, and I just go deeper into it and deeper into it, and it seems to be kind of this generator of new ideas for me. So if there is any book, whatever it is, it doesn't need to be philosophy. I would recommend that. Something to build a deep relationship with it. So how about you?
Okay. If I was to get people to read three books, the first one would be Milton Friedman, Free to Choose. Um, Second would be, let me think. This is a difficult question because there's a lot of them. Um, hmm, Dead silence. I don't like it. I'll go with this one. Dean Koontz, Odd Thomas. I think that's just one of the biggest hard hitting books. And the third book would be Basic Economics by Thomas Sowell.
Okay. So a lot of
Um,
economics, a lot of rational
yeah,
thinking.
yeah. Uh, I try to, I spent most of my life, long story short, I spent most of my life as a communist and
Hmm.
a postmodernist. It was actually Thomas Sowell who got me to stop being a communist by reading basic economics is what set aside me to not be a communist and a postmodernist anymore. Because people seem to forget like this battle against postmodernism was also fought in the 70s and 80s,
Hmm.
and we had assumed, I guess I'm a positivist. We had assumed that we won, that at the end of the day that the empirical science can say something and we can go along with it. And then it wasn't up until here recently that I even knew that postmodernism like still existed in academia. I always thought that that was like okay, maybe postmodernism might stay within like the humanities, like specifically with like a critical analysis of a book you read, right? So like you
Hmm.
can never be wrong with your analysis of a book because there's like an infinite amount of ways to say that what the red door may mean. But I just assumed that that was just specific to books. And then as I got into the science a lot more, especially in economics, I started seeing where there was a lot of nonsense being published in these journals, and it was really just postmodern garbage being regurgitated, and like they would use statistical analysis and things, and they would bias the results just so they could prove a point without actually having to do any of the science. And that kind of led me to some like existential despair, like what can I do, I can't do
Hmm.
anything against it, I'm just one person. And then I that's when Jordan Peterson came about, and it was like, oh wow, this
Clean
is
your
this
room.
is amazing. Yep.
Yeah, like, well, I come from the harpy's nest, so to speak. 8 years in the humanities has showed me how the things go. Finland is kind of interesting because it's kind of between Russia, the classic Russia. It's the big bear right next to us, and it seems to me that like the hardcore left is the kind of resentful towards the stronger or the richer. That's pretty well entrenched in Finland, but the new postmodern stuff is not yet that much uh, around the public discussion in Finland. It's coming because everything that is moderately Western becomes American pretty quickly. So your influence is being shipped here pretty quickly, but it's not that bad yet. But I've been reading some university documents and stuff like that, so they are leaning heavily towards the same kind of phrases and stuff like that that you have there. So
Okay. um if if not Finland, where do you think you would like to move within Europe? Do you think Poland would be a good place to go, because it seems to be like the bastion of fight against postmodernism as like a country? But do you
I
think
don't
there's other
really know.
places? No?
I
Okay.
don't really know because like life is really good in Finland. There's no question about that. So to the extent that their society is gonna split into maybe roughly two factions, and then there's some trouble brewing ahead. I think I feel like my place is staying where I am and trying to make things better there. So I've thought about that. My girlfriend is uh, half Californian, so there might be always the option to move there into the California and San Francisco, but I guess that's pretty postmodern area. So
Yeah,
I don't know. I
that
don't know.
place is pretty bad. There's heroin needles everywhere.
Mm.
um, so why did you want to become a teacher So what led you to
Mm.
that?
Well, it's an ongoing struggle because the subject I'm going to teach are like philosophy and religion and stuff like that. And I started my career, university career, and my studies um, right out of high school, and I didn't know what to do. It was just I picked a subject. It happened to be media studies because I don't know, and well, the studying is free in Finland, so I just figured like, what the hell? Then I'll go and study something, and it was like the continuation of the high school. Well, then I became anxious about the fact that I'm only gonna have a degree from some useless humanities subject. So then I figured,
Hmm.
okay, I'm gonna need a profession. I'm gonna need something real. So I figured, okay, well, how about a teacher? And it's kind of like it's the mature, rational adult plan of having a profession to kind of make sure that you at least got the money to live by, and then maybe do the interesting things on the side.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Do you have any plans for writing a book or like anything along those lines, or like are you going to put more resources towards YouTube, or is that just something that you might do on the side?
Well, I do have a couple of video ideas that I'm working on related to Peterson. So I'm definitely gonna do those, but I'm not gonna have any stress about like starting to have weekly content and stuff like that because I'm doing it to sort out my thoughts and just I don't know, maybe have some interaction with other people. Um, Other than that, well, writing a book, who knows? I've been planning writing a novel for a long time, and I got the outlines in my head, so that might be cool. Because I'm really high in openness, and I get these like pretty what would you call? I like imaginative visuals, like that I can think of, and they are now that I'm learning more about Jung, for example, I see that hey, there's some archetypal content here, so I find it interesting, and the novel would be a good format to probe deeper into those subjects. But I don't know. Writing definitely is going to be part of my life. To what extent or how public, I don't
Okay. Um, if not Jordan Peterson or Nietzsche, what are some other like philosophers or public intellectuals that have influenced you in the past, I'd say 2, 3 years?
know. Well, the 2 or 3 year mark really marks the split where I had just previously gone through the New Atheists, the Four Horsemen, pretty thoroughly. Mostly Hitchens. Christopher Hitchens was someone who like he really got me into the habit of watching long lectures and long debates in YouTube, and I devoured a lot of his stuff. So right now, other than that, well, I haven't followed her. It's like it's been mostly Peterson, like for the past year and a half. It's like watching everything he publishes and checking the updates as often as possible. But I really liked Karen Strawn, if you know her. It's her YouTube tag used to be "Girl Writes What."
Mm-hmm. Yep.
She has
Really.
some, yeah, she has some good videos about feminism and even some biological knowledge. She lays it out pretty beautifully, and her writing is very good, very clear. So I've enjoyed her video essays a lot.
Yeah. So I think me and you are kindred spirits here. So Christopher Hitchens was a huge influence on my life. That's why I even got into debate, and into this website and this format and stuff like that. I loved watching his debates, and just like you, like he was the person I guess who gave me the ability to sit down and watch like a 1 hour, 2 hour discussion. And And then secondly, Karen Strawn. If I was to say someone who is as influential on me as being I guess you could say an anti-feminist, I think that she's probably up there with Jordan Peterson and a few other like YouTubers. But uh, I think that she makes probably some of the single greatest arguments against feminism, against like all sets, like not even just like third wave feminism as they use it, just like second wave and first wave. And then I think she makes some really good ideas about how men and women ought to interact with each other, because like at the end of the day, that's really the next step. And that goes back to like that Vox interview that Jordan Peterson had just did recently. I don't know if you've seen that 14-minute clip of him saying that uh, makeup
Vox or
and
Vice?
oh, was it it might have been Vice. I'm
It was Vice interview, I think.
okay, yeah, the Vice
Yeah.
interview. I'm sorry. But those are those are the same arguments Karen Strong's brought up for quite some time. Like we really don't know how to interact with women. You don't. I don't know how to compete with women in a job market, because if I compete with a woman at school the same way I compete with a man, it typically turns out that I'm like a bad guy or I'm being too aggressive.
Hmm.
And if I don't compete with them at all, I just get slammed. So
It's well, I think Peterson is right about the fact that right now we're living in a time where, though, well, this is kind of a I think this background needs to be set, because I've been thinking about this quite a bit in regards to Peterson and where the society is currently at and whatnot. I've been thinking about how knowledge is built. And first, I think it's in your body. Like bacteria know stuff, but they don't represent it. They just do stuff. Then you get more complex mammals like wolves who can start to kind of dramatize stuff. You Peterson talking about how they can bite the necks as a sign of dominance and whatnot without hurting the other one. And then you get into humans who dramatize and ultimately then articulate with a rational speech different stuff. And I think in the Western societies, we're in the point where we are dramatizing the idea of trying to somehow integrate the masculine and feminine together into a unified and ultimately a better whole. But right now, it's like we're just acting it out. And when someone asks, "Hey, we're acting out this weird thing, and what are the rules and what are we doing?" Everybody is like, "Shut up. We know what we're doing," because it's actually really hard to think about it, to bring it under question. Like, what are the rules? What are we doing? Why are we doing it? Does it produce good results? And all that stuff. So I think we're a long way from, as Peterson says, having the mature discussion about it, where everyone can be like, "Okay, we're doing this thing. We don't know why. How could we improve?" And all that.
yeah, I definitely have to agree. I even myself, I know that like I don't think I could have a full mature discussion on it, just because um and I guess this is my own bias that I see. Like I see what masculinity has become, and it's really hard for me to say like what are the virtuous values of masculinity and what are the virtuous values of femininity that a man ought to have, because it's so abstract, right? And
Yeah.
like, like I'm trying to think. This guy, he was part of the alt right for a while. I'm trying to think of his name. But he came up with the four traits of masculinity. Let me think. These are like the cross cultural and cross cross temporal. Um, it's from the Return of Kings.
Ah.
Um, I can't remember his name for the life of me, but I'll try to get back to it one day. But
Yeah.
anyway, so he gives four frames of masculinity, and they're like power, competence, caringness, like husbandry as a caring idea, and then another one that I'm not entirely sure for. But like those I could stand by, right? So like
Hmm.
as a man, and it's typically really hard to think about it because, oh, well, here, let me ask you a question. What do you think about within the personality trait of like the big five into the sub 10? What do you think about the idea that there's like the alpha, the omega, the sigma, and the beta? And then there's like the alpha alpha, and then like the omega alpha, and so on and so forth. And that that 16 set of matrix can be played into the big five with the substrate of the, or it, with the sub of the other 10. I don't
Um,
know if you've ever heard of that.
uh, well, I just happened to come by a picture that had like alpha, sigma, and whatnot, like males, like
Hmm.
depicting different kind of males. But I don't think you're referring to that. Or so I don't know really. You would
Okay.
have to explain what that system is.
So like the alpha male is typically like the leader. Omega is the type of male that's like really smart, like programming style. Sigma is the lone wolf, but is still like
Who
dominant.
works with women, but
Yeah,
like yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and then like yeah, I saw a picture about it. Well, like I don't know, maybe there's something about that, but it's like I might be willing to accept that there are those kind of patterns, but for now, as far as I understand, they are not something that have been validated with any kind of research. That they're kind of like memes, popular memes. But I think
Yeah,
there might
no.
be some truth. I think there might be some truth in that. That those like the personality traits might just predispose you to being in a certain kind of person, and then obviously then you consciously would need to try to be something else if you would like to be something else.
Yeah, okay. I can go with that. Um, we're running short on time, so I guess I'm gonna lay out the last couple questions.
Sure.
And within society that we see now, what do you think would be the best thing that young men, and I'm not talking about like 20, I'm talking about like 8 or 9 year olds, like
Mm.
young boys growing up in society that kind of like is not a huge fan of little boys. What do you think
Mm.
would be the one piece of information that you would give them
Like little
to,
kids.
yeah, to kind of help them move through a path and get to a place in the world that they can do better with?
Mm.
Because I don't know about Finland. Here in the United States, like little boys are just like they're behind on everything. They're doing terrible in school. And if they're not doing terrible in school, they're typically slapped on some ADD medication. I think it's something like 25% of boys are on ADD medication, which is high level amphetamines at the age of like
Hmm.
7 and 8,
Yeah.
and they're just failing in droves.
Well, I think this is an interesting story. I used to be like I went through the grade school, so grades 1 through 9, uh, with a class that was basically the same for the whole 9 years, and there was like 10 boys and about 18 girls. Well, whatever. Um, we the boys used to play football every recess, and out of the six parallel grades, like the kids of our age, we were by far the best class. And I believe it's maybe even solely thanks to the fact that every recess we went and actually had our rough and tumble play, and we were tired and we concentrated better. And it's like I don't think there would be anything much more complicated than that. It's just the boys having their boy activities, getting tired and sweaty and kicking the ball and whatnot. It's like that's a simple one. The other one, if I would really have to talk, if I could talk and form a relationship with a young kid, then I think the do not lie and do not use your situation or your like weaknesses as excuses. I think those two would be the big ones. But I really like the more practical and physical approach. So I think play, go out and play, use your body. The body will tell the truth that the current atmosphere might be not telling you, the current society.
Okay, no, I think that's a really good idea. I would like to see that implemented more because I think you're right on that. And I can say as like a function of my life, being someone who wrestles or works out and stuff, like when I do that and I come to sit down to study, it makes it so much easier. Whereas if I've just been sitting down for 8 hours and then I go home and it's time to study and get on with my work, like my brain's just like, no, dude, I don't want to do this.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but if I work out or I get tired and I'm physically active, and when I go to sit down, my brain is just full on.
Mm.
All the neurons are firing, and it just makes it much simpler. All right, so that's really the end. With this, I'm gonna, do a quick shout out to everybody on Call Out. Thank you for watching. How can they watch Jones' videos?
Well, they should go to. Uh, how am I going to spell it? So my first name is Jonne, and my surname is Kyt uh, O umlaut. Am I getting L and A umlaut? So well, Jonne Kytölä in Finnish. But I'm with my I'm with that name in YouTube. It's my real name. Well, I think you can find it that
Okay.
way.
I hope everybody goes over and starts watching some of your videos and getting into depth psychology with Jung, Jordan Peterson, and Nietzsche. Um, and I'd like to thank you for having this sit down interview with me, and I think it was a blast, and I hope you got something out of it as well.
Yeah, I think this was great fun. Never done this before. I think maybe I should
Yeah,
start doing more of this stuff. Thanks for the
yeah.
invite.
All right, man. Anytime. But I'm gonna take off, and thank you so much once again.
Yeah, bye bye.